Yo, what's up YouTube? So one of the most common comments I get across my YouTube, Twitter, Instagram is how am I able to listen to a song and then play it immediately back on the piano without even having to touch my piano? Or how do I know so many different songs from so many different artists, from so many different video games? How is it possible? And since the answer to this is pretty complex, I wanted to make a whole dedicated video explaining my approach to learning songs on the spot, and then also explain to you guys just how I know so much music. And before we hop into my approach on how I learned so many different songs on piano or how I'm able to play a song on the spot, I want to give a quick shout out to the dude because he also made a video similar to this, and this gave me the idea to make my own version of it. So if I'm not learning a song on the spot that someone requested from Omegle, or if someone made a donation on Twitch, I typically learn by using sheet music. Also, just a quick plug, I sell sheet music at marcusveltri.com for all my original music like Thoughts, Prosperity, and Sorrow. But yeah, sheet music is the main way I learn music on piano when I'm not being forced to learn it on the spot. But the main reason I'm able to learn songs on the spot without even having to touch my piano is because of something I have called perfect pitch. So you're probably wondering, what is perfect pitch? Perfect pitch is having the ability to identify or recreate any note without having a reference tone. So if someone played a B flat on the piano, I would be able to know that's a B flat without even seeing what note they played. I would just be able to determine it. I would also be able to sing any note. If someone said, hey, sing a B flat, I could go, and I would know that's a B flat. Keep in mind that perfect pitch is extremely rare. Only about 1 in every 10,000 people have it, and it is not something you can learn. Now, some people say you can learn perfect pitch, but then people argue that you can't learn it once you're past a certain age, or that it's just a really well-trained relative pitch. It's kind of a huge debate going on in the music world right now. I'm not gonna dive into that. I'm basically just gonna talk about how I use perfect pitch to learn songs on the spot. So if I'm able to determine any note just by listening to it, I can figure out a lot just by listening to a song. So when someone requests a song on Twitch or Omegle, the very first thing I do is I listen to the song and I try to identify the key signature. Once I find the key signature, this will make it easier for me to determine what the chords are of the song. And I also just want to let you guys know, I definitely cannot listen to any song and just be able to play it. Like if you played Fly of the Bumblebee, I would not be able to play that back on piano. Typically, most people request pop music, and pop music typically is only 4 to 5 chords for the entire song, and then the melody is usually pretty repetitive, so it's pretty easy to do on the spot. But if you requested like classical music, that's a lot harder to play back on the piano. But anyway, so once I find the key signature, I'll usually listen for the chords, and typically the chords are actually more repetitive than you think. And chords are extremely important because sometimes if you just play the chords to a certain song, people will recognize it. And if the song itself actually has a piano part in it, I'll usually only just play the piano part and kind of just ignore the melody, because people requesting on Omegle, that's probably what they wanted anyways, was for me to play the piano part. But if there isn't a piano part, I usually move on to the melody, and I try to figure out the melody. And in my opinion, the melody is one of the most difficult things to determine because it's not as repetitive as chords are. Melodies typically have a ton of variation in them, and it's hard to find patterns, but sometimes you can. So typically on Omegle, I obviously won't learn the entire song. I'll kind of only listen to a certain section. And a lot of times I'll listen to that section 2 or 3 times really quickly, and I'll just try to figure out one part of the melody. Now, once I have the chords, the key signature, and the melody, I'm able to think about how I want to arrange this on the piano. Now, when I move the key signature, the chords, and the melody onto the piano, I typically have a certain formula for when I play a song on the spot that I've never tried playing before. There's usually certain left-hand patterns that are my go-tos that I'll stick with. Maybe I'll start in the higher range, and then as I get more comfortable with the patterns, I'll move it down to the lower range, and it'll kind of, grow dynamically. Sometimes I'll start out in the low range and I'll just start out really strong, and I'll just try to get a really good reaction, maybe end in the upper range. It really just depends on what I want in the moment. But this is all entirely improvisation, and the only way to get better at improvising is literally to just do it. There's a lot of technique to improvisation, but for me, the only way I got better at it was just doing it. Even if I wasn't good, even if it was really simple, really straightforward, I just kept doing it. And I've been playing piano for about 8 years, and I would say the entire time I was always practicing improvisation. I do learn a lot of my music from sheet music, but a lot of the time I would add my own things to it, and I think that's really important as a musician. But having perfect pitch helps me out so much because I don't even need to touch the piano in order to learn the song. I can figure out the key signature, the chords, and the melody all just within my head, and then I just memorize it. And something that's really important to know about music is that it's all made up of patterns. And these patterns get more complex as the music gets more complex, but there's always a formula to it. And this is where the idea of music theory comes in. So you do not need to have perfect pitch to do what I do. Perfect pitch does help a lot though, because it does come off as a lot more impressive if I'm able to just play a song without even touching a note. But if you had really strong relative pitch, you would be able to figure out the key signature just by playing a few notes on the piano just to make sure you have your reference tones correct. So don't be discouraged if you do not have perfect pitch, because most people don't. And so many different talented musicians can do what I do. And a lot of them can do it a lot better than I can. The main thing you really want to focus on, especially if you're a piano player, is first work on your improvisation. And then the most important thing, in my opinion, is your knowledge of music theory. Music theory is basically explaining why music sounds the way it does, and it's explaining how it almost is like a formulated science. Now, music is extremely complex, so some things can't be explained, but a lot of the time, you can explain why music sounds the way it does. And if you understand how it works, you'll be able to detect these patterns a lot faster. Something like aural training or ear training is super important too. Being able to determine the space between two notes, aka intervals, is really important, especially when you're determining the melody. So if you do want to do what I do, I highly suggest focusing on your piano improvisation and also just study music theory a ton. It's honestly one of the coolest things that I have ever learned about. Specifically, you really want to focus on ear training too if you're trying to learn songs on the spot quickly, because that's obviously going to be really important, being able to determine the key signature, the chords, the intervals, etc. But in a nutshell, that's how I approach learning songs on the spot when I only have a few minutes to learn them, like on Omegle or on Twitch or something. But yeah, just start out with really simple songs, maybe like Mary Had a Little Lamb. We all know how it goes, so maybe try playing it on piano and see if you can figure out how to play it in all 12 different key signatures. Just start doing it, and you may be really bad at first, but that's okay because you will improve, and there's no other way to do it unless you just start doing it. Now, something else you guys will see a lot in my videos is, someone will just say, oh, play Ariana Grande, or like my favorite artist is Ariana Grande or whatever, and I'll just know an Ariana Grande song, or sometimes it could just seem like I know so many different songs on piano, or it sounds like I know every single song on piano, and that's definitely not the case. I do not know every song ever made on piano, obviously. The main thing that really helps me with this is that I'm pretty much constantly listening to music. Anytime I'm at the gym, or if I'm doing laundry, or if I'm editing, I'm pretty much always listening to something, and I always try to listen to something different. I also tend to, of course, listen to what's more popular now, that way I stay in the loop of everything. But just listening to the music makes me familiar with it, and if I know a song well enough, I don't even need to listen to it again. And I could just play it on piano, even though I had never tried playing it on piano. And that kind of goes back to how I listen to songs on the spot and learn them. I can't stress this enough. The main reason why I'm able to do what I do, and so many others able to do what I do, is because of music theory. And there's tons of great resources on the internet for free if you literally just Google like free music theory lesson or something. I took a music theory course in high school, then I took a few music theory courses in college as well when I was a music major temporarily. But honestly, I probably learned the most just online, reading about it, taking tests, doing all these quizzes. And then also, once you get to a certain point, you almost start teaching yourself. You start teaching yourself new ideas, new theories, and just by listening to music, you learn something. I'll listen to songs and I'll think, wow, I'd never thought of using that chord that way. I'm gonna try doing that when I improvise next time. Oh wow, this sounds really cool, and that's really how it works for me. I just listen to music and I see how people use chords in certain situations, how they layer melodies on top of chords, and it all makes sense to me, and I'm able to piece together why they would approach that. I also practice piano a ton. I probably play about like 3 hours a day, at least every day, if not more. Sometimes I'll play even more than that, which is kind of insane when I think about it. but I practice piano a ton. And if you can't find that type of time, that is completely okay. 30 minutes a day will get you far. Trust me, consistency is the most important thing. If you have a good understanding of music theory, if you know a lot of popular music, if you have really good ear training, you will be able to do what I do in a matter of no time. And the thing is, I have so much more to learn and I have so much more room to grow. And I'm always trying to get better. There are people that can listen to something and they can play it exactly the way it sounded back and then added more and, you know, make it sound like they've been practicing it their whole life. And that's kind of one of the cool things about music is you can always improve, you can always get better, and it's just like endless, and it always keeps me motivated because I know I can be better than I am today. I really hope this helped in some way. I didn't want to get too specific on, you know, key signatures and chords and all of that, because then that would require a whole separate video. But I just kind of wanted to talk about my approach and how you can get started learning this, because literally anyone can get started doing this. You do not need to have perfect pitch. As long as you have good relative pitch, you will be able to do what I do. I highly encourage all of you guys to go learn about music theory because it will honestly change the way you listen to music. Be sure to leave a comment if you guys like this type of video, because I'd love to make more videos where I just sit down and talk with you guys about music, because I'm just super passionate about piano and music in general, so I really enjoy this. Also, be sure to follow my Twitter and Instagram if you want to be updated on new videos or you want to see sneak peeks to anything. I'm very active on both of those. And that about wraps it up for this video. I can't really think of anything else I would say that it could be said in just like a short video, but hopefully everything I said today has helped you guys in some way. And yeah, I genuinely wish the best of luck to all of you guys who want to learn how to play by ear, learn how to improvise better on piano. You can do it. You just have to put in hard work. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one.